Welcome to KARE 11 News Extras. Today, we're taking a deeper look at social media and the harmful effects on kids. We know as parents that we need to do something, but how do you tackle something so big that has become such an integral part of our society? We're going to talk in depth with a psychiatrist who has more details on how social media is affecting our kids' brains and some helpful information about what we can do as parents navigating it all. But first, let's take a look at the story about some Minnesota moms that decided to take some action.
How was your day?
Most parents are keenly aware of how social media has been affecting our kids. We're also aware that once they start, it's hard to pull back. So what do we do? A group of moms from Edina, Minnesota has decided to take a different approach.
We had to get ahead of it.
Attacking the problem on the front end. Each of them has an oldest kid in the 4th grade, none of whom have been on social media yet.
I reached out to my 4th grade boy mom text chain and I was like, hey, this has been on my heart, it's been on my mind. Do you think we could do something?
Buzz Off Social is an initiative that we've formed. There's a pledge that the families can read together. It talks about staying off social media until you're 16. We can show these names to our kids and say, hey, your friends are also not going to be on social media, which takes away that peer pressure.
A pressure that is very real.
It definitely has a negative impact on mental health.
Owen O'Neill sees it in his friend group and beyond. It inspired him to do a research project last year and to work with these moms to create the website for the Buzz Off Social Pledge.
I see the same photo of a girl like 20 times because everyone wants to be the one to repost her and really feel validated. And then some people don't get any reposts, and it's kind of a social hierarchy almost.
And that is just the tip of the dangers that hide inside social media sites.
This like-based economy and kind of like how it's pulling them into kind of watching other people's lives and not living as much of their own.
Dr. Joshua Stein says this move to short-form videos has led to mindless scrolling, but it's not just a time waster. It's causing something called brain rot. We as adults probably feel it too, but listen to how he explains why it's even more concerning for kids.
Our brains are losing working memory skills, they're losing computational skills, and that's for people my age who develop them. And so kids are not developing the same skill sets, the same effort sets, the same ability to use their brain. And that's kind of scary. We're seeing more and more evidence that kids don't hold things as long. They can maybe hold it in working memory for an exam, but then it dissipates. We see that there's issues with anxiety, body image, and at some points can lead to self-harm, depression, and other larger concerns. So what steps are these companies going to take? Because this is something that's causing detriments to human beings.
Dr. Stein does believe the pendulum is swinging the other direction. The state of Minnesota last year requiring districts to create policies around phone usage in school. And some countries like Australia recently taking the aggressive move to ban social media for kids under the age of 16.
We have heard the cries of families who are suffering.
Under the new law, tech companies are required to crack down on underage accounts or else face millions in fines.
That's pretty huge.
Denmark, France, Norway, Malaysia, and China have all either passed or intend to pass restrictions for kids and social media. And until tech companies or our government does something similar, it's up to us to fix it. Put the peer pressure on the parents.
I think that a lot of parents know that it's not good for our children, but do it anyways, so their kid is included and isn't left out of their friendship circles. So hopefully we're making this easier for parents also to say, hey, here's a pledge.
And I think that kids are smart enough to take in that message and start to understand the why instead of just being told no.
Hopefully this will jumpstart and get the ball rolling.
We do have the pledge for you on KARE11.com right now. And coming up next, more with Dr. Stein, some helpful information for parents, and then Chris Harapsky is going to join us to talk about his own research on the topic and his experience as a parent. Welcome back, and joining us now is Dr. Joshua Stein, who you heard in the story from the last segment. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
I learned so much from you that we couldn't fit into the story, and so we wanted to talk more about it today, maybe give some parents some advice on how to move forward as well. So let's start with the fact that some of these companies are facing lawsuits because this is such a dangerous medium.
Yeah, so what we're seeing now is lawsuits in California, international lawsuits, really looking at the negative mental health effects that is occurring from many of the social media platforms. So we've seen some settle, we're seeing some getting bigger. I've even heard locally on our radio stations, call us if your child has had negative mental health effects from social media. So we're starting to see that sea change that I would say many of us in the mental health field have kind of been expecting for some time.
Well, and we talked about in the story that several countries are doing something about it. Tech companies have not really stepped up at this point. I'm guessing it's cheaper to pay a lawsuit than it is to change practices.
I don't have a comment on that, but I would say that something needs to change because we're really seeing it affect a generation in a very different way.
You talked about this idea of brain rot and these short-term videos. It's not just the likes and not getting likes or being bullied. There's something happening to our kids' brains.
Yeah, so we think a lot of like the big critical elements, like the predatory elements of being online or being bullied, but there's also, what does it mean when you lose your quiet moments, when you lose your daydreaming, when you lose the ability to be bored? When you're constantly surfing and scrolling and filling your brain up with small things in small bites, but not really putting thoughts together on your own.
And so you're seeing kids or young adults coming forward now and saying they have presenting symptoms of ADHD, which they didn't have when they were younger?
Yeah, so in its simplest way, we're seeing these concentration effects where kids cannot maybe pay attention in the same way, engage in an activity long term. They're kind of being pulled towards breaks in their brain, needing to take breaks. And we're seeing adults complain about it as well.
It affects us equally, right? Or probably not equally, but it's affecting us too.
Yeah, so I think a really simple way to think about it is just how maps have changed how we address things. And it used to be you could drive all over the Twin Cities, all over the state and kind of know where to go. Or there's the big boulder, or I'm going to turn a mile after I see this, beach on my right. And nowadays we lean into Google Maps, Apple Maps, whatever it may be, and we need that maybe to get to one of our friends' houses that's a mile and a half away. And so in some ways we're losing this working memory ability, we're losing the ability to hold on to things, and it's really changing how our brain thinks and increasing dependence on technology.
Let's talk about some good things, some silver linings.
Absolutely.
It's not just a complete dumpster fire, right? Like there are some things that you can find that are helpful on social media.
Oh, without question. And so, as a child psychiatrist and in a field where there can be disconnection, there can be social skill disruption, other things, we're seeing that a lot of kids can find their people online in a way that they couldn't have in the past. So if you love trains, if you love World War II history, if you love a certain anime or manga, whatever it is, kids are finding their people, and that's really wonderful. And I think kids maybe feel less isolated, they feel less unique. They feel unique, but they feel less lost.
Right.
And it's a really strong thing, and it's a nice thing about social media.
And for those kids, that actually might potentially help their mental health, right? To feel like they belong to something.
Absolutely. Kids need to find connection, they need to share it. And we see a lot of children who at times struggle in kind of a standard school environment to find that. And they're able to find that connection, find their people, and that's wonderful. I also think it allows people to stay connected in ways that we didn't in the past, for good or for bad.
Right.
But we see kids who maybe go to camp or share an experience and they finally find somebody that they connect with, and they're able to hold on to that in a very different, very real way than maybe having a pen pal,
right,
back in the day.
Absolutely. It's also done this wonderful thing for mental health where it's destigmatized, kind of like seeking help or feeling like there's something wrong with you. Yeah,
so for the longest time, kind of the battle cry for mental health was like, stop the stigma, And I think when we all lived through COVID and we lived through the pandemic and the isolation and the challenges and the uncertainty and the worries, many people realized how caring for their mental health was a really big deal. And at the same time, as social media started to grow, we saw this step away from these diagnoses being something that a doctor would make or whatever. Instead of saying, oh, you have generalized anxiety disorder with panic, it's, I have the Sunday scaries, but I have them every day of the week. I get nervous, for Monday, but it happens all the time. And we saw this claiming with memes and with experience and telling stories and kids talking about it and all these different ways of really bringing that stigma down. Now, the flip side is, if you go on TikTok, you go on some of these sites, a lot of people will come away saying, oh, well, I went on there and I did this finger down challenge and I have autism and I have generalized anxiety disorder and I have ADHD and no, that's not usually the case. But we find as it brings in a lot of people with good talking points and thoughts, and families come in with thoughts and we're able to talk through it. And that's where having your doctor, having your therapist to go through it with and understand it, we can be more precise, of course.
Yes.
But I feel like the conversations are a lot better.
And just a word of caution to people out there, because not everything you see is correct on the internet. So while it might be good for feeling less stigma over seeking help for mental health, you should still go see a professional.
It's always good to check in. And I think sometimes one of the big misses from the online discussion to what's actually happening in your life is that you may feel you have some symptoms of a disorder, but it's got to cause some morbidity and functional loss and impact you. And a reminder, it's wonderful and okay to be quirky and unique, and that does not always equal that there's a diagnosis. And that's actually one of the wonderful parts about being human.
I'm sure parents are wondering, what do we do, right? If you're obviously delaying the social media as long as you can is the best option, but there's parents that already have kids on social media, and one of the things that we talked about in our interview was that parents don't feel emboldened to take away a phone. So what should parents be doing? Yeah,
so we see this idea and it's unique. And I compare it to a lot of parents I talk with about when your child finally can drive the car. They've passed that license test, they're able to go drive. And even the state now has some real limits on it. You can't take 7 kids in the back of the van like you could in 1985 and take the seats out and put, beanbag chairs back there. No, you can drive with one person, no one in the back seat. It limits the hours you can drive. And so from even that standpoint, we're setting up some rules. But parents, when there's safety concerns, when rules are broken, they're very comfortable saying, no, I need the keys. I need the keys. We're going to talk about it. We're going to then set some new rules again. You can drive to school and back. You can drive to work and back. But no, you can't just drive all the way to Wisconsin, whenever you want. And it's a tough thing with social media because it really feels like once we've given them these phones and allowed them to download these apps, a lot of parents kind of throw their hands up. And it feels like it's now a right instead of a privilege. And so I talk about there's safety issues online, without question. There's also issues with, if it's affecting your learning, if it's affecting your growth, if you're being cruel online. And it's okay to take the phone away like you take car keys away. Sometimes it may feel like a punishment. Sometimes it may just be about safety. And so parents should be emboldened. They should talk to each other, like the community in Edina, start to come up with rules and things that help everybody grow in a healthy way. But it's okay to take those keys away.
And I think for some parents, it's like, but I want to be able to get in touch with my kid too. So there's that aspect of well, now I don't know where you are, or I can't reach you if I need to.
Yeah, but there's ways to shut things down on phones, and I think it can feel a little tricky and a little confusing, but there's some really good websites that explain it. And so if you need that ability to touch base, you need that ability to check in, there's ways to kind of brick the phone out to a degree that you can do that. And I know there's companies that are looking at how to make schools more of a phone-friendly zone where you have the phone and the core things you may need, but not all the other noise and nonsense around it that are problematic.
If you're parenting and you have a kid on social media, is it okay to check phones? Is it okay? Should you have passwords to things? What are some rules around that?
I would say yes to all of it. At a certain point, your child is going to be 18. They're going to live on their own. They're going to pay for their phone on their own. They're going to grow up. We put training wheels on bikes to help them grow up in a safe way. We watch out for them. You just talked about wanting to track phones so you know where they are, you know that they're safe, you know they're coming and going. That's the same thing. I mean, the phone, when you're in your room with your phone, the entire world's out there. and there's unique and connecting ideas, there's radicalizing ideas, there's all sorts of different things available. And so it's important we're checking the phones, we're looking at the language that they use, that their morality that we want them to have, we think they have, is actually matching with who they're presenting as online. And it may lead to some of those really critical, necessary parenting moments that help them become the human beings that we want them to be.
And for parents, there are signs and symptoms that something might be wrong, right? And
yeah.
So what should people be looking for, changes in their children after handing them the phone and letting them on social media?
Absolutely. So I think first off, you'll get an idea of kind of how your child uses their technology, and every kid's different. But when kids start to use it differently, they seem guarded about it, they seem upset after using it, they may seem scared to go on it. You may see it buzz and they don't pick it up, or all of a sudden tension picks up, they feel different. These are some of the warning signs that there may be things going on. There may be bullying, there may be something happening there that's uncomfortable, that's scary. And you will pick up on that when it occurs. Additionally, we can see some of those standard signs of childhood and teenage depression that can start to show up. So we can see them start to refuse activities they enjoy. We can see them start to not want to go to school. A lot of times it can affect sleep significantly, but really irritability. And one thing I talk just generally about childhood depression and adolescent depression is when kids are happy, even when they're depressed, they usually are pretty interactive and happy when they're with their friends, when they're doing fun things, but usually there's more of a quick turn. And it feels like, wait, what just happened? Like, he was really happy with his friends and now he's sullen and irritable. And that might be some of the changes you're seeing as well. That may not make sense.
Do you have a conversation with them, or do you go to a professional right away?
It depends on our families. I think every family is unique. Every family has different approaches. I would encourage you to have that conversation first. I would encourage you to lean in and say, this is big technology and I want to understand what's happening, but you seem like when you get an alert, when you get a snap, whatever it is, you seem different these days. You seem nervous. You're not seeing your friends in the same way. I've never seen you kind of act like this. I always encourage parents, as well as kids when they talk to parents, pick the right time.
Yeah.
You know, if they have 3 friends sitting with them, if they're exhausted from a late practice, if they haven't eaten yet, whatever it is, get to that calm moment. And we all know our children and kind of the moments they have. Maybe it's at bedtime when they're settling down. Maybe it's in the morning when they feel ready to talk. But if you're concerned enough, don't wait, lean in. And if you don't know how to have that conversation, we are trained, mental health professionals are trained to help you have that and to support your family and your child.
And there are resources, there are ways
absolutely.
to get help.
And a beautiful thing about our state is we have a real continuum of resources as well. And so, we have the most high-level resources, whether it's inpatient or residential, but we also have intensive outpatient programming. We have partial hospital. We have family groups. We have individual therapy. We have virtual therapies. So mental health resources can really match you where you're at with what your need is in our state, which is very unique and very different than some other places where it's like either you're in clinic or you're in the hospital and that's it.
And best place to start, your pediatrician maybe, if you don't know where to go?
Yeah, so pediatricians really focus on this. And the American Academy of Pediatrics has been really helpful and been at the forefront along with a lot of the psychiatric institutions to say we need more support here, we need more help here. And they've actually come up with even something called the Family Media Plan, where they support like this living document online that you can make with your family. It's not just specific to the teens.
Right.
It's the 0 to 2-year-olds and then the young kids, but goes up to adults and to say, how do I use my media? Am I using it appropriately? Am I using it safe? And there's a lot of categories. And so yes, a pediatrician is a good place to start. If you need support, if you need help, I work for an organization, Prairie Care, and you can reach out to us directly. And there's a lot of different ways we can do screens.
Dr. Joshua Stein, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Such great information, and we'll have links to your website as well as Buzz Off Social on KARE11.com. Thank you again for being here. Coming up next, Chris Harapsky is going to join us to talk a little bit more about his own kids even and social media. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Joining us now is Chris Harapsky to talk about this very topic and the research that he has done as well. Chris, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure, Rena. It's nice to see you and talk about this. I think we talk about it off air all the time.
We do talk about it off air all the time. And one of the fascinating things that you've been doing or you've done research on is just the number of bots that exist on the internet. And why that's so important is because you can get pulled down into these rabbit holes, right? Like you get fed the information that you're looking for, and some of it's not even real.
Yeah, so we did a series of stories last year looking at how many bots are online. Who are they? Who funds them? What does a bot look like?
Right.
All these questions, right? And why does this matter with kids? It's because we can't trust what they're seeing is even authentic. The internet is so exploitative that it's depressing, right?
Right.
And there are studies out there, reputable studies that show for the first time ever more than half of all internet traffic, more than half of all internet traffic are bots.
That's insane.
A minority of them are what they call good bots that are like just looking at IP history and things like that to market certain things.
Yeah.
And then about a third are bad bots of all internet traffic are bad bots. And they're there to like take information and take your background and do malicious things. It spills over to social media too, which is where it's really troublesome. There are companies that study this for their business, right? And what they found is alarming. Like there were a couple instances that were brought up to me. One was, you remember when President Trump attempted assassination, right? He got shot in the ear allegedly, and it was like a mega story, right? Well, immediately after that happened, there were 100,000 different posts that were put out there claiming that this was just an effort for him to get reelected.
Right.
And it was found by this company that the vast majority of these were all bots, pre-written, sent out automatically by some actors. And this is something we see all over X, Instagram. It's there, right? Companies, people with money, influencers, political parties are all trying to influence you through comments. And the data's there, it just shows that it's outrageous. I mean, like a third of all the comments on Elon Musk's election-related posts before the last election were all fake bots. So what's real? You know, this is a lesson we need to teach our kids. It's like, you don't even understand yet that you can be manipulated, let alone that people are trying to manipulate you in mass on those phones.
It's scary, and we've been talking about this entire show about what do we do as parents, and I know you and I have talked about this because what do you do? It is so much a part of their lives, and we have littles yet still, so we, you know, it's not your oldest.
12, 10, and 8.
Okay.
So I don't even know like what the average is for giving people a phone. When do you give your kids a phone? And like, I didn't get one until I was in high school because they didn't really exist.
Child, I am so much older than you.
I don't know.
I got my first phone here at Carolina.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah. So later high school. But nowadays, you know, we held out until 7th grade with my daughter.
Yeah.
And she spends a lot of time, you know, waiting for rides or needing to get picked up or needing to communicate, and we thought, why not? But we set certain rules. I forget who I heard this from, but we run with it now. And the rule is, you can have your phone. You know, we parentize the whole thing, so it's pretty sanitized. But at night, if it's after 8 o'clock at night, you got to be in the living room if you're going to be on your phone. Here, in this room. And after 9, you don't get it. It's over. 9 o'clock, it's over.
But is she using it just for texting, or is she on Facebook? Is she on Snapchat?
We don't allow any social media.
There you go.
Okay. I think we allowed Snapchat, which just shows you how good of a parent I am. But it's only like, she can't see other people's stuff. It's only friends. And we can approve her friend list.
And that's a setting on the app.
Yeah, and like that's the same for my son, who has an iPod Touch.
Okay.
So he can play music and he can like do a FaceTime with us.
Yeah.
But it's all through Messenger, which is Facebook's Messenger.
Right.
We approve all of his friends, and we approve any game or any download he does, and that's how we kind of monitor him. It's hard.
Things
are little casinos. The phone is something I don't think the human species is ready for, let alone children. And we don't even know the effects that it will have on the brain, with time management, with responsibility, with attention and attention
Well, it's already
deficit.
having those effects. It's already causing.
terrifying.
There are more kids, as Dr. Stein mentioned, presenting with ADHD symptoms later in life. That's something you usually find when they're younger, but they're presenting later in life because it's mostly the short videos, right? It's
like a rewiring of your dopamine
rewiring
system.
their brains, and the problem is, it's hard for us as adults, but these kids haven't even had their brains wired the right way yet.
Yeah.
Their cognitive skills have not completed yet. So like it's causing a huge problem.
Yeah, and I'm not an alarmist typically, but these things are drugs. They're the new cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
They're the new cigarettes. Are they cancerous? Well, I don't know. But the dopamine hits and the desire that people have to keep scrolling, seek attention, seek dopamine, find new video, quick hits.
People can't even drive their cars without picking up their phones, and that's adults. How do we expect kids to be responsible with it?
There's only one way. I think, and I'm not a psychiatrist obviously, but I'm a dad, and I think that we as adults have to look in the mirror and show the right example as a role model.
I agree with you.
No phones at the table, maybe no phones after 9 p.m.
Right.
Okay? Don't ever be on your phone scrolling when your kid's trying to tell you a story or tell you something important. I catch myself every now and again doing that, and I'm like, no.
It's hard.
And so not only to be an example, then to set really firm rules. And you'll know how bad they want their phone when you threaten to take it away.
Well, and Dr. Stein said some parents won't do that. They don't feel emboldened enough to. You'll take car keys from a kid, but you won't take the phone because then you can't track them. You can't get in touch with them. So there's a lot of reasons why parents don't feel emboldened to do that. And that's why I think it's important to get on the front end like these moms are doing this, buzz off social. They're not saying you can't have a phone. They're saying let's be off of social media. And I think that's an important distinction here because,
right.
You do need to get in touch with your daughter. But I think the peer pressure from other parents just handing something over to them, and then all of a sudden your daughter has two friends that now can text with each other, but she can't text with them. And so I think that's what happens is the peer pressure for parents is like, well, I want to give my kid everything. So I'm going to give you this phone, even though I know it's probably not the right thing to do. And I think that's where we as parents have to be the ones to step up and make a change.
I also think that that's incredibly dangerous. I mean, psychologists have long warned of the overbearing parent, the overbearing mother, the overbearing father, and how that can mess with your mind as you grow older and you realize that no, the world will not be handed to you and you're not protected at all times and you have to handle your own problems and you have to delay gratification to achieve long-term goals, things like that. And the phone preaches and doubles down and triples down on just the opposite.
Right.
That scares me. When you think that you deserve instant pleasure all the time, then that's a bad deal for being a responsible adult, because that's not how the world works.
It isn't how the world works. So
yeah, there is no cheap dopamine all the time that's healthy. There's just not.
Well, and until big tech companies, do something about it, or our government does something about it, it's up to us.
You know what's cool? Imagine this in a short while. The next cool thing to do is going to be to put your phone down for the day. Go 24 hours in adventure. Or go out with your friends with no phone. How avant-garde and crazy would that be? And they'll find out that the real adventure maybe is better.
Well, I would tell you, just because I obviously am, 186 years old and didn't get my first phone until I got to year at care.
You're the oldest person in the world.
I know.
You look great.
I feel, I'm going to start telling people that. I feel it's easier for me. It's easier for me, if I did not do this for a living.
Yeah.
I would stop every ounce of social media. I am not interested. I do find myself getting caught down a rabbit hole when I start looking at it, but I could go without it and I would be absolutely fine.
Who knew that we were such voyeurs?
Right.
Who knew that people were so interested in other people's business?
Big tech companies did.
Yeah, they knew it.
Yes.
They knew it the whole time. Yeah. I don't know. It's just it's a fascinating thing that has real world consequences. And I appreciate you doing the research and talking to the doctors, because the more we can get real, blind studies, controlled studies out there, the more information we have, the better we can be as parents. Yeah. I told my daughter, you got to read this. You have to literally read this report, this scientific study on the effects of social media on teenagers before you can have a phone.
There you go. I appreciate you coming and talk to me about it.
Yeah, we need more of this.
We do, and I hope other parents will chime in too, because this is something that we all have to do together. So thanks for watching this episode, KARE 11 News Extras. And again, we do have that pledge if you want to sign it on KARE11.com.